Hello students! In this presentation, we'll focus on the introduction of the literature review. The introduction includes 3 paragraphs. Paragraph 1 includes background information on the topic you're going to discuss, along with the importance, significance, gap of examining the relationship between the 2 variables in question. Remember that you should not mention any results, you should not forget in-text citation, and you should use the most shared significance among the 4 studies. Paragraph 2 discusses the purpose and research question of this literature review. The 3rd paragraph in the introduction includes the operational definition of each of the 2 variables in each of the 4 studies. Remember that you should combine the definitions of the same variable if possible. To understand the functionality of the 3 paragraphs, let's go to their main component, variables. Suppose that you're working for long hours. You're overexerted. This is overexertion. So, you feel exhausted. This is exhaustion. So we can hypothesize that overexertion leads to exhaustion. Overexertion is the independent variable because it leads to or has an effect on exhaustion, which is the dependent variable. So again, the hypothesis is overexertion, the independent variable, leads to exhaustion, the dependent variable. However, both variables need to be defined in measurable terms. The act of defining them in measurable terms is what we call operational definitions. Let's try and define them. Overexertion leads to exhaustion. Overexertion could be defined as working more than 12 hours, and exhaustion could be defined as poor work performance. Remember paragraph 1? We said that you should include background information on the topic, along with the importance of examining the relationship between the 2 variables in question. Well, remember that you should not mention any results, and you should not forget in-text citation, and you should use the most shared significance among the 4 studies. In order to achieve that, you're going to introduce the topic in general, then you'll narrow it down to reach the 2 variables you're working with. Then you'll show the importance, significance, or gap of examining the relationship between the 2 variables in question using the most shared significance. Again, remember not to mention any results and not to forget in-text citation. Remember in paragraph 2, you should mention purpose and research question of the literature review you're working on. In order to do that, you'll be using the independent variable and the dependent variable to state the purpose and research question of your literature review. In paragraph 3, if you remember, we state the operational definition of each of the 2 variables in each of the 4 studies. Whenever possible, combine the definitions of the same variable. Let us practice. Which one is the dependent variable and which one is the independent variable in eating bananas and blood pressure? Take a minute to think. Excellent! The independent variable is bananas, eating bananas, and the dependent variable is blood pressure. Now, can you provide an operational definition for each of the following variables? Aggression from children in a playground, problem-solving ability, older adults, stress. Well done! The variables aggression from children in a playground could be defined as, for example, the frequency of aggressive acts such as hits, shouts, and pushes observed in a playground. Problem-solving ability variable could be defined, for example, as time taken to complete a puzzle. Older adults variable could be defined as individuals aged 60 years old or more, and stress variable could be defined as the cortisol level. Imagine that your research is based on these two variables. The independent variable is sleep quality, and the dependent variable is memory. Read the following introduction and try and spot the major problems based on the points we discussed earlier. Now let's read paragraph by paragraph. Paragraph 1. In the human world, learning constitutes the main goal behind attending schools and universities. Indeed, it is institutionalized and relies heavily on the capacity of the learners. It is important that work and motivation enrich our life experiences. Sleep is also an important issue. Although many studies have examined the relationship between sleep quality and memory, inconsistency was a major problem noticed in their results. Paragraph 2. The purpose of this review is to study sleep and memory. The research question is, does sleep quality have an effect on students' memory? Paragraph 3. In this review, sleep quality, the independent variable, which represents the number of hours spent in sleeping per day, is defined as insufficient if the number of hours is smaller than or equal to 5, and sufficient if the number of hours is equal to or exceeds 6. Were you able to spot the mistakes? Now let's discuss the imperfections. The problem with paragraph 1 is that the general idea is not narrowed down to reach the dependent variable, memory. The second problem in paragraph 1 is that there is no in-text citation. The mistake in paragraph 2 is that the purpose does not show the relation between the two variables. The other mistake in paragraph 2 is that the question included should be in WH form. Finally, the third paragraph has a mistake, which is that one definition is provided and for only one variable, and no in-text citation is mentioned. Now, let's correct the imperfections. Remember the mistakes we discussed about the 3 paragraphs? Paragraph 1, the mistake was that the general idea is not narrowed down to reach the dependent variable memory, and that there were no in-text citation. If we were to correct these mistakes, take a look at the additions in bold. In the human world, learning constitutes the main goal behind attending schools and universities. Indeed, it is institutionalized and relies heavily on the capacity of learners to remember elements of knowledge and to create association among them. The addition here relates to the variable memory. Thus, a good memory paves the way for individuals to store knowledge for future practical uses. This is why it's important that it gets developed and enriched by other life experiences and activities such as work and motivation. Sleep is also an important issue when it comes to memory. So, in paragraph 1, the mistakes were corrected, and now the ideas are narrowed down to reach the dependent variable memory. The second mistake was in in-text citation, and you can notice here that in-text citation was added after each idea. Paragraph 2, the mistake was the purpose did not show the relation between the two variables, and the second mistake was that the question was not in WH form. The correction of this mistake would be: the purpose of this review is to determine the effect of sleep quality on students' memory. This corrects the first mistake of not showing the relationship. Here the relationship discusses the effect of both variables. And the research question: what is the effect of sleep quality on students' memory? We use what WH form. The third paragraph, there was a mistake in that only one definition was provided and for one variable. And the second mistake was that there was no in-text citation. If we were to correct this, you'll notice here that there are multiple definitions for sleep quality and memory. Let's read it. In this review, sleep quality, the independent variable, which represents the number of hours spent in sleeping per day, is defined as the insufficient if the number of hours is smaller than or equal to 5, and sufficient if the number of hours is equal to or exceeds 6. This is one definition. In a fourth study, sleep quality was categorized into insufficient number of sleeping hours is less than or equal to 4, medium number of sleeping hours is ranging from 5 to 6, and sufficient number of sleeping hours is above 6. This is another definition for sleep quality. If we move on to the dependent variable memory, we'll see two definitions. In two research studies, memory was specified by the scores obtained in the immediate list recall test. In one study, it was measured by obtaining students' marks on a biology terminology test. And in another study, achievement in memory was determined by the score fulfilled in the verbal memory test. The other mistake was there was no in-text citation, and you see here in-text citation right after each definition. This is what a correct introduction should look like. Take a few minutes to read it as a whole. Thank you.